New consumer confidence numbers coming out today shows an optimistic outlook on the economy and personal finances. But there's still anxiety for many Americans managing debt or trying to buy a home. Our next guest says those two things are among the top financial goals in the new year. Joining us now is Michael Liersch, Wells Fargo Head of Advice and Planning. Michael, it's always great to have you on. So when you think about how consumers are feeling compared to the data you have, what's, I guess, the divergence?
So when we think about how consumers are feeling, that optimism, and the data that people are still managing spending, managing credit and debt, they want to buy a home, they want to prepare for emergencies. The idea here is that we all are still moving into a relative sense of uncertainty in 2024. Is the economy still going to be sustained beyond any kind of recession? Is inflation, are we still going to see it drop? Is the Fed going to really move forward with cutting interest rates? There's still that uncertainty. So it's a bit of a tale of two cities. Some optimism for the future, but also preparing for the worst.
And then how do you prepare for the worst? Because there's been a lot of data that we've seen over this holiday season about the rise in BNPL. What would you advise consumers to do? Sure, it doesn't carry the same kind of, credit debt issues, rather, that credit cards carry when you're thinking about, say, super high interest rates. But what is it that consumers need to keep in mind about preparing for the worst or just the unexpected?
So there are three things that I would consider. The first is really thinking about how much you can sustainably afford to spend in the new year. And so a lot of people go into the new year, they've already positioned themselves in a way that maybe doesn't set themselves up for success because they've overspent during the holidays. We're approaching that time right now for a lot of Americans. And also, they've kind of kicked the can down the road on some of the things that they've wanted to do in terms of their goals so they could afford gifts. So what I'd encourage people to do is really think about let's say, tempering that spending for the holidays and beyond, the vacations people take afterward, so that you can start the new year off right. The second thing I would really think about is what feeling are you going for in 2024? Do you want that sense of peace of mind, security? One of the top goals we have in a capability we call Life Sync at Wells Fargo is peace of mind. So if you're going for that sense of peace of mind, make sure that you're putting some money away for emergencies, whether that's paying off debt, whether that's something that happens like a flat tire or, something breaks that you weren't expecting. And the third thing is really make sure you know where your money is at all times and how you intend to use it. So is it best to use a credit card? Is it best to use a bank account to spend on those unexpected things, to be prepared for those emergencies? Really thinking about where that money is coming from and what you're using it for is really going to be critical in 2024.
And Michael, I want to quickly touch on kind of housing and a much bigger ticket purchase. Buying a home has really become a challenge for people within this high interest rate climate. What are you seeing in terms of how people are planning around it? Especially, we talked earlier, we are seeing some unlocking of the housing market, but really the catalysts in that market have been life events recently. How are people planning around this for the new year?
So we're seeing a couple different things. The first is that people are really planning ahead to save for that down payment. So they're really taking the opportunity to set a goal, think about the size of the home they want, really managing to the ongoing, think of it as mortgage payment that they can afford. And they're saving up that down payment very intentionally month by month. So that's an interesting consumer behavior to see, building up enough money for a down payment to sustainably afford a house that they want. The second piece that we're seeing is that people are willing to wait for the home that is right for them and to build up that amount of money and also get help from a parent, get help from a spouse or a partner. How are they going to afford that home and make sure that they can afford it in that sustainable way? And asking for help, getting other people to participate in it is a way that we see consumers really thinking about home purchases these days.
All right, I love that. You always bring great information and data to us. Michael Liersch, Wells Fargo Head of Advice and Planning. Thank you for joining us today and happy holidays.
Thank you. Happy holidays to you too.
You got it.